Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our FP&A Trends webinar, where today we'll be talking about real-time and continuous planning. What does it involve? My name is Hans Gobin. I'm an international FP&A Trends ambassador, and today I'll be facilitating this meeting. Just so you know, we've got nearly 350 people registered on this webinar today, joining us from over 44 countries in the world, and lots of exciting insight to come. What have we got on the agenda for you? So today we'll look at real-time and continuous planning, the key concept definitions, 6 success factors for successful implementation, critical elements of continuous planning. We will also look at a case study. Then we'll move on to the role of technology in continuous planning. We'll do some conclusions and recommendations, and finally, we'll do some Q&A session. So without further ado, let me introduce to you my panelists. So ladies and gentlemen, if you can join me on the webcam for this introduction session. Our first panelist today will be Sonia, Vice President, Finance and Analytics at Ultimate Medical Academy. She's joining us from New York, and she will talk to us about critical elements of continuous planning. Sonia, great to have you with us on the panel today.
Thank you for having me today.
Thank you very much. Our second panelist is Maria Karaseva, CFO Egypt at Ahram Beverages. She's based in Cairo, Egypt. Today, she'll take us through a case study of real-time and continuous planning. Maria, great to have you.
Hello, Hans.
You
Hello,
are
everybody.
Fantastic. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you. Our third speaker for today is Kevin Freeman, Senior Manager Product Marketing at Workday, based in Fremont, California, in the USA. And of course, Kevin will take us through how technology can help us do continuous planning and the benefits of that. Kevin, great to have you on board today.
Thanks, Hans. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got 3 great panelists, 3 great presentations coming in the next few minutes. But for now, I've got some housekeeping, so I will ask the panelists to turn their webcam off and go on mute while I go through some of the housekeeping slides. So let me introduce to you Workday, who today is our technology sponsor. We all know Workday. They help us solve our greatest business challenges. So thank you very much, Workday. A little bit about FP&A Trends for those who don't know us. We are an international FP&A board and FP&A community. We are in 30 cities, 16 countries, and 4 continents, soon to be 32 cities. So please look it up and join us wherever we are. We also do FP&A Insights and FP&A Education, and a lot of this is on our website. So please pay a visit, have a look, and join. Housekeeping. For those who don't know, this is a 1-hour webinar. We've got you participating via our polling questions, so please vote for the 2 polling questions. Also, there is an interactive Q&A session. You can ask questions via the chat box. You can ask any questions you have on the subject if you want now, or wait till the presentations are over and ask. But please direct it to who you want us to answer those questions. The presentation is available for you to download in handouts today. If you don't manage to do that, you will get a copy of the recording and also of the presentation after the meeting via email. Finally, after I close the session, there is a feedback survey that pops up. I would request that you spend 30 seconds or so to give us some feedback. How did we do? But also to tell us what are the future subjects you'd like us to bring to you as well. So please stay a little bit longer and just give us that feedback. Moving on, very quick introduction. I'm not going to take too much time. So first of all, what is continuous planning? Continuous planning replaces our traditional annual, biannual, quarterly plans with continually updated plan, which is dynamic and open-ended and is triggered by internal and external events as they arise. This helps us to become agile and effectively manage and maintain shareholder. But how do we do that? To do that, we've got to make sure we harmonize our planning processes. The three main planning processes that we have: the strategic plan, the financial plan, the operation plan, and make sure bottom up, top down, and cross-functionally they are harmonized. And finally, what are the key 6 success factors to take us to that level of continuous planning? We need to think about the key drivers, identifying and cascading down 20% of drivers that explain 80% of the results, the 20-80% rule. Our model has to be driver-based model, consistent, harmonized vertically and horizontally, as mentioned before. And our panelists will be talking to you about these in their presentation. Our model needs to be a 3-way model. We need to model the P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow at the same time, not just the P&L and the balance sheet, or one and not the other two. Processes need to be integrated, collaborative and connected. People need to be integrated. Organizational structure that allows collaboration, again, top down and across. And finally, technology that connects model, processes, people, an integrated platform. So please have a good think about this key 6 success factors, and our panelists will shortly be taking us through all of these. So without further ado, let me move on to the next session. And to deliver the next session, we have Sonia Monder, Senior Vice President, Finance and Analytics at Ultimate Medical Academy. And today she will tell us about the critical elements of continuous planning. Hi, Sonia. Over to you.
Hi, Hans. Thank you for the introduction and for having me on this panel. I think that most of us agree that FP&A function is continuous evolving. And in my own department, we used to be expected to report actuals and variances versus budget and provide quarterly forecasts and do ad hoc analytics. And now it's much more than that. We're asked to really maintain a good line of sight on the financials at any given time, not only to report on the financials, but in a way to start managing them from a financial perspective. And that's, for us, has required a different approach. That approach is what we're talking about, continuous planning. There's a need to have items revolving around people, process, and technology to achieve continuous planning. I would say that on the people side, it's really a change in mindset in that about what the role of FP&A is or can be within an organization. I often say that actuals are not actionable, and in fact, they are quite obsolete by the time they are reported. So to add more value as an FP&A team, we need to shift our mindset to be forward-looking to better anticipate the future. In my organization, I have the benefit of leading both the FP&A team and the analytics and business insights team. And that gives us a chance of having access to all of the financial and operational data that is needed for continuous planning. And with the financial information and the deep knowledge of operations under the finance team, we can be a better strategic partner, and that's led to better ability to translate the changes in the operations into financial impact. We're also quite transparent about the financial impact of the key KPIs with those who are accountable for them, and that's led to a better partnership between them and FP&A. I'd say that we benefit from a leadership team that sees value in being proactive and who is used to making decisions based on data, which is also needed when it comes to continuous planning. On the process side, I collaborate with a small group of people who understands the link between strategy and operations. And as the name implies, continuous planning is not static. It's an iterative process. It's not something that you do and then you leave alone until the next budget season, but it's a planning that gets revised as often as needed to keep a really good line of sight on the future. As for technology, certainly having access to quality data is important because continuous planning involves both financial and operational data from across the organization. And the platform that is used, whether it's simply Excel or something more complex and integrated, should be at the end flexible enough. But I would say that the tool doesn't deliver the quality of the planning itself, but it certainly allows to achieve it in an easier way. Moving on to the next slide. So you may ask, what are some of the first steps to start the journey towards continuous planning? And I call this a journey intentionally because it's not an all or nothing concept. Just doing a little bit of continuous planning in areas of the business that directly drives results can be actually quite valuable. And as simply as it sounds, I'd say, you can get started just by being curious and forward looking. And I say curious because it's no longer about just applying a percentage growth to revenue and deriving expenses as a percentage of revenue, but you really need to start with the key drivers of the business, whether they're internal or external. Then there's a need to understand what's behind those drivers, right? What are the leading indicators and what moves those leading indicators? For us, the business insight team brings this deep operational knowledge on leading KPIs to FP&A. And we have automated reports that track all the operational trends so that we can stay on top of that. I'd say the next step is to build a financial model based on those drivers. The model, again, should be simple and flexible, where you can change assumptions so that you can run different scenarios. My own model are simple enough that I can share them with colleagues outside of finance. They understand them, and they also have the flexibility to run their own scenarios with assumptions. But one thing to remember is that it's not meant to be a mini budget, right? It does not have to have all the P&L line items. It's a model or a set of model that can give quick answer to all kinds of what if questions. And the goal of the model is to quantify the impact of those what if scenarios on the financials. Not just on the revenue and expenses, but really a three-way model that includes the balance sheet and the cash flow. And on the next slide, I really want to talk to you about how I actually apply this on a day-to-day. So I work at Ultimate Medical Academy. It's a non-for-profit school. We have mostly online, and we have over 15,000 students across the US. The key drivers for us are the number of students that are active and our student support staff. The leading indicators for the number of students, that includes the number of inquiries that we receive as a school and where those inquiries are coming from. The staffing level in admissions is also a big driver, and how students retain along with their graduation rate. On the leading indicators of student service, that includes staffing levels in student-facing departments, but it also includes the tenure and the attrition of that staff and how we have the ability to recruit at those entry-level positions. I have a weekly meeting with marketing and admissions to stay on top of trends, challenges, etc. And I get daily and weekly reports on showing the leading indicators. And when I see trends, whether they're favorable or unfavorable, I look to understand what's behind those trends and what really is happening. If a trend is favorable, how can we capitalize it? we have the ability to make quick decisions to increase marketing spend, to drive inquiries on any given month. And the people who are meeting weekly have the responsibility and the ability to make those decisions without having to go outside our group. Couple examples of what if scenarios that we plan for ahead of time are listed on the slides. And I want to touch base on two of them. The hurricane one, right? We're in the US. We are impacted by hurricane during hurricane season in the southern states. And when a hurricane is coming, we can know very quickly how many inquiries we're likely to not have if the hurricane is, having impact for 1 day or 3 days, and what exactly that impact is on revenue, expenses, and cash. And it's the same thing for our frontline staff tenure, staff tenure. We've done analytics that shows that, for example, an admissions rep, it takes about a month and a half to ramp up to full production. But our career service staff, it takes up to 6 to 8 months. And so we can plan the financials based on that. And again, plan not just at the expense or revenue level, but really the three-way model that we were talking about. Now, we're a mid-sized organization. We're currently going through a digital transformation. This means that we are still in Excel and that getting some data requires efforts, too much efforts at times. But it hasn't stopped us from building simple models in Excel to plan for those what-if scenarios. And as I mentioned, we are a non-for-profit organization. We certainly calculate the impact on our financials, right, and bank covenants, but we also look at the impacts on non-financial ratios, such as graduation rate, career placement rates, student debt, and a host of other compliance metrics that are very important to us. So overall, our organization sees value in the ability to be agile and quickly respond to the scenarios that really, truly impact the financials. So thank you for listening. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Hans.
Maria, thank you. Sonia, thank you very much. Fantastic presentation. The critical elements, and of course tying that back to actually what you're doing and how you're doing it, and bringing all those live examples. Thank you very much for that. Really, really good, and lots of learnings there. Now that we've learned about what you are doing, let us look at our polling question and what our members are doing as far as continuous planning. So ladies and gentlemen, I've just started the polling question, and the question to answer is, what is the best description of your current planning processes? We use traditional planning, we use a rolling forecast, we started to use automation, we do real-time continuous planning, and that of course is with automation. So please vote. What is the best description of your current planning process? We use traditional planning, we use rolling forecasts. C, we started to use automation, and D, we use real-time continuous planning. I will give it another 5 seconds, so please vote. And then I will close the vote, and I'm going to share the results right now. So sharing the results, 51% still use traditional budgeting and planning, 37% use rolling forecast, 5% have started using automation, 6% only use real-time continuous planning. Sonia, any comments on the outcome of the polling question from you?
Yeah, Hans, I'm not surprised that over 50% are using traditional planning, and another big percentage, 37, are using rolling forecast. And I think that's why we're talking about this topic today, because of I think there is room for our function to evolve into a more continuous planning that is really driven by the operation. So not surprising here. And I think that, if you're using a rolling forecast, you are able to do real-time continuous planning, using some Excel. And again, as I said in my presentation, it's not an all or nothing. You can dip into continuous planning where it matters the most.
Absolutely, absolutely spot on. Plenty of opportunities there, and of course the key thing is, lots of learnings to be taken from this session to put back into the business place. So thank you very much for voting. Thank you, Sonia, for your insight. Just before we move on to our discussion session, I'll just like to remind the audience, please send in your question, send in questions via chat box. We have a great session coming afterwards, so please let us know. Can I invite the other panelists to come and join us as well? We've got a discussion session coming, and what we're now going to talk about is how do you identify and stay up to date with the key drivers. And Sonia has mentioned quite a few drivers there, but how do you identify and stay up to date with these key drivers? Maria, if I can come to you, please.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Sonia, for a very interesting set of slides. It was very, very insightful. Coming to the question on the drivers, indeed, this is, the fundamental step in continuous planning. And I would say it's all about practice and business knowledge and curiosity. So identifying drivers, for me, it's a little bit like an onion which you peel. Like first level, you try and understand what drives your revenue. In the industry where I'm working in, that would be volume and pricing. Then the next level will be why such volume? How is it connected with distribution and consumption? And the pricing, how is it connected with affordability, elasticity, competition, etc., etc. So like this, you start unpeeling your onion and you are coming to the business drivers as long as you want. And of course, the drivers are changing over times. We know that our customers and consumers are also changing. So it's important to stay indeed up to date and understand what is changing in the reality around us, which drives the changes in our financials and algorithm. That will be for me.
Yeah, great insight there. Thank you very much for that, Maria. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think my thoughts on this are really for everyone out there to really identify what's important for your business, right? So not just a cookie cutter approach to necessarily what everyone else is doing, what other finance organizations are doing, but really looking at what your business in particular is going to need to understand its own key drivers that are going to be different from others. So whether it's differentiation based on what industry you're in, or what size or stage your company's in right now, I think that those things are really important to consider. I think that one other thing to consider as well is just bringing in operational data as well. I think Sonia had mentioned that as well, right? Taking advantage of the data that's available to you. And maybe that's where a lot of folks run into roadblocks as far as limitations around their tools, just because data has just proliferated so much in recent years that they need a way to handle that. But I think that really being able to take advantage of that data to enrich your financial plan is just such a big opportunity right now that we have.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Kevin. Coming back to you, Sonia, any final thoughts?
Well, I would say if you can merge your analytics and business insights team within the FP&A team, that'd be great. But I realize this is a little bit too much. But I would say then I spend a lot of time with the people that are leading departments to really understand. And sometimes I start with a budget discussion, and then I use those touch points with them to really ask questions. So what are you doing? What about this vendor? What about that vendor? How are you seeing things moving? And that's how I learn about the business.
Yeah, and I think you used the word curiosity early on, which comes in really to point here. So thank you very much for your insight on this discussion point, ladies and gentlemen. Let us move now to our next session, which will be the case study. So if I can ask everybody to turn their webcam and just quickly reintroduce again. Our second panelist is Maria Karaseva, CFO Egypt at Ahram Beverages, ABC. Real-time and continuous planning, her case study. Maria, over to you.
Many thanks, Hans. Many thanks all. So indeed, I have a pleasure today to walk you through a practical example how the company had to implement continuous planning, and I would say to do it hard way. So let me go back in time to the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. At that time, I was responsible for, accountable for Central European markets, and a number of global events had impacted them big time. So in the end of 2019, the market experienced a big double-digit commodity inflation, which didn't happen in the past 15 years. Also, the governmental authorities were putting a bit more pressure on the businesses like ours, namely implementing sugar taxes, which would change the price to the consumer. And all in all, after all that, COVID happened, which impacted every aspect of the life and business of people in the market. For us, Central Europe was a big, growing and profitable business, which found itself a little bit in the middle of the ideal storm, which on practice was reflected in economy slowdown, the local currency devaluations, inflation reaching double-digit numbers, which impacted the purchasing power of our consumers, and a lot of global and international contracts, which were now a little bit broken, and that is why it impacted the operational and investment activities of the country. On the next slide, you will see that that was really a big challenge for the organization. Again, nobody knew where we are in, what this new reality is bringing to us. However, we knew that this business is there for the long time. We want to sustain it. However, protect our financials here and now. What it meant on practice. First, taking balanced pricing while keeping the affordability there, but also, balancing company margins. Also shifting between the sales channels priorities because the consumer behavior was drastically impacted. Localizing and buying raw materials in anticipation of logistics problems and issues of any kind. Optimizing portfolio for the new reality and protecting our employees. So what was the company request from FP&A? So first, move to the real-time scenario model, asking ourselves the question, what happens if this? What happens if that? How we can, so what will be the implications? How we can influence them? So we are able to take the most balanced and the right decision. So we had to create a solid base for decision making, give ourselves and the organization more time to think and strategically align on our priority and action steps. And in order to do that, you cannot use your traditional planning anymore, right? You need to build a model, you need to focus on business drivers and triggers of your financials to see what the outcome would be. On the next slide, we will see what company did. Of course, the first reaction or first, I would say, instinct was to continue with the detailed planning as we always did it. But very, very quickly, we realized that this is not enough. It's not bringing us the results which we need versus the efforts which were spent. So we really had to move to the real-time planning model. What it took for us. So first, we created a master forecast, baseline forecast without, any strange one-offs, etc., etc. Second, identify business drivers in each and every element of that, assess their impacts, and start acting on them. In order to do that, we created a working group of finance and non-finance professionals working on the scenarios and who very importantly need to understand the business drivers, why they're here, why they're like this, and gain the support from the management team around the whole exercise. Because it was a constant modeling, we needed to automate the master forecast process and change the behaviors of the senior management as well. So focusing the discussions not on how our target or goal is looking like, but what if scenarios we can build and how we respond to them. Think about it upfront and then build the financial models. And of course, learn as we go. On the next page, you will see that this approach learned hard way, but it brought big benefits to the company. So first of all, we were able to quite quickly replan, find the optimal solution, and deliver against those results. What helped us on that way? So it was highly inflationary market, but our pricing approach was tailored, multi-step, allowing it to settle in and balance company margins and consumer needs. We also were able to shift our distribution in the new reality, and all that was possible because we created time to think for ourselves as an organization and focus on the, again, what if scenarios. So we gain time not to react, but rather to respond to this new reality. And now a few words on what it takes. I'll take it through three aspects: technical, people, and technical aspects, engagement, and capabilities. So technical, master forecast is needed to be in place, and ideally, and if you can, planning systems will help you to do that. Engagement. So you need to have experts in the business and in finance who understand how it works, and you need to have the motivated management who supports this transition. And on the capabilities side, it's about having a working group who is analytical, creative, is eager to deliver the result, and is open for the uncertain future. There is no longer one forecast. There can be many, and everyone needs to embrace this feeling. And finishing my today's small presentation with the last slide, let me give you a few tips and tricks on how to build this real-time forecasting journey. I will take the three elements. First, master forecast creation. Get as clean and clear base plan. It can be actuals, it can be plan, it can be anything, clean and clear as you can. Second, combine it with the business drivers, about those we talked with the previous panelists. Be sure that you will never get it 100% right from the first time, so it's better to be 80% accurate than 100% wrong. And continuously revisit your drivers as you go. On the second pillar, how to keep the alignment with non-finance people and management team. First of all, you start with engaging management and working groups with a new approach. You explain to them why you are doing it and what benefits this new approach brings. Understanding that it takes a bit more time and effort, when the forecasting is predictable and done once or 3 times a year. You collect, analyze, and verify the data, especially the drivers, with a working group, asking them to be your sounding board or your partner in identifying those drivers. And you keep your management updated on the drivers and inputs changes as opposed to the outputs. And last but not the least, it's important to create scenarios. Make sure that the management team understands that there is no longer one scenario, there are multiple views of the future. You spend your time on building the hypothesis, outcomes, and actions which you are going to take, and automate it as much as possible. So those are the practical conclusions from my practical business case. And I should say that they were very relevant before the COVID. They remain relevant in 2023 because the market I'm accountable for is also going through a volatile period and requires a real-time planning. Thank you very much.
Maria, thank you very much. Great presentation there, and thank you for giving us, first of all, your case study. And we saw, you know, going through the first set of upheaval, what you guys had to do, what you did, and then you've just ended with the comment that again the market has changed with what's going on in the Middle East, etc. And now you are prepared. You can do continuous planning, and that will put you in a completely different footing to where you were a couple of years ago. So thoughts for everyone here as to, guys, you know, it is hard work, but guess what? Once it's done, you know, you can get on with things, and things happen very, very quickly. You can react very quickly as well. Agility is the key thing. So fantastic there, Maria. Thank you very much. Let us now find out what our audiences and our FP&A members are struggling with in terms of continuous planning implementation. So what do you believe is the biggest challenge of continuous planning implementation? Is it talent and skill set? Is it mindset? Is it technology? Is it data? Or is it the business model? So if you can vote, please, what do you believe is the biggest challenge of continuous planning implementation? A, talent and skill set. B, mindset. C, technology. D, data. And finally, E, business model. So I'll give you another couple of seconds to vote. Would really like to know what you're struggling with, what your challenges are. So if you can push that button, let us know. I am now going to close the poll and share it with everyone. So right, so we've got 14%. We have 14% talent and skill set, 38% mindset, 5% technology, 28% data, and 16% business model. So can I come to you very quickly, Maria, to just give us a little bit of insight here?
Okay, sure. First of all, thank you guys for polling here. I'm not surprised to see those results. From my experience, indeed, people and mindset are very, very important to shift to the real-time planning. My one small comment here, let's not underrate or underscore the role of the technology, because technology, when done right, it becomes your one more player in the FP&A team, the most unbiased, the most accurate, up to speed, and ready steady go. So for us, technology was a big help, but it doesn't diminish the challenges with the talent, mindset, and people in the organization. Thank you.
Absolutely there, Maria. Great point there. And 38% talks about mindset, which brings us nicely to our discussion question, really, is mindset is all about culture and cultural challenges. So our discussion question here, and I would like to ask the other panelists to join us, please. So how do you deal with culture challenges faced in implementation of continuous planning? And if I can come to you, Maria, first. Sorry, Sonia first.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised either about the mindset response in the pooling question. I think that the culture challenge is finding that finance, or accepting that finance, or FP&A more specifically, gets involved in a lot more than your typical finance function, and finance being on marketing calls and operational calls, and being close to the COO and asking about, shipping and material costs and all that. So it's really letting finance into an area that maybe in more traditional organization, finance would not.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sonia. Kevin, your thoughts, please?
Yeah, I think that this is a great question. I think, FP&A has a really unique opportunity here to evolve its role and to act more as a strategic partner to the business. We're not just crunching numbers. We're not just doing reporting, but we're strategic advisors, right? So I think that what we need to do, especially when we interface with our operational counterparts, and just gaining more adoption, is showing them the value, right? Showing them that there is value in adopting this continuous planning mindset, showing them our intent as well. It's not that we want people to be planning all the time needlessly. It's that we want to be able to react. We want to be able to respond with confidence. We also want to show them that at the end of the day, this actually makes things easier, right? If we're on top of the ball, we're able to respond in a way that doesn't cause continual fire drills, but instead we're continuously ready with a plan.
Absolutely great points there, and the other thing that comes to mind is sharing the wins and celebrating the wins with people. So that brings things to life as well, sharing the real value. Final thoughts from you, Maria?
Guys, I cannot agree more with what the audience said and the panelists have just said. Indeed, cultural challenges are big in the process, but the efforts are worth it. Important to bring the benefits to the organization, to your colleagues, non-finance colleagues, but also to finance colleagues, because sometimes our own organizations start asking us, are we not half marketing or half sales? No, we are not, because we are helping. We are part of one group, one organization. So yeah, so it's a big topic. Start with bringing benefits, evolve your team, evolve your colleagues, let everyone speak finance language, and then it will be good. Thank you.
And fantastic. Thank you very much for all your comments on this discussion question. Let us now move to our final session, which is on technology. And to deliver that, we have Kevin. So panelists, if you can please turn your webcam, and so will I. Kevin, over to you whenever you're ready.
Sure, thanks, Hans. Appreciate it. So, just like the other panelists have mentioned, if we learned anything from the last few years, it's that in this changing world, change has really been the only constant. So we've come out of the global pandemic, we've come out of the other side, and we're met with more disruption, economic uncertainty, volatility, and we can agree that everyone here needs to find new, innovative ways to navigate this world that we're in. So we talked a lot about changing mindset. What's really needed is a paradigm shift in the way that we think about planning. Moving on to the next slide here. So it means that organizations, leaders, and for us as planners, we need to become more agile. So long gone are the days of the static annual budget or even semi-annual forecasting. The future and these changes that we're seeing, they're approaching far too rapidly. And as the other panelists have mentioned, the markets and conditions are shifting far too quickly for us to keep the status quo. So whether it's new ways of working, increased economic uncertainty, or disruptions across whatever industry that we're in, modern organizations need to make a transformation from inflexibility to adaptability. Now, the biggest challenge that planners face today are legacy approaches to planning. And part of this is disconnected and manually intensive processes. Perhaps it's spreadsheets, perhaps it's sending files back and forth through emails. These types of approaches are preventing a more agile and strategic approach to planning. So companies can't rely on these approaches anymore. Instead, they're faced with kind of a hard choice. We either need to adapt and change the way that we think about the way we plan, or we quickly risk being left behind. So this approach over here that we see, where these organizations are disjointed, right? This legacy approach isn't helping. It's hurting organizations, preventing them from moving forward and from thinking strategically. We talked a little bit about the evolving role of finance, particularly FP&A. Well, this is the number one thing that's probably preventing FP&A from moving forward. It's this just disjointed process across the organization. So with the proliferation of data types and data volumes, it's something that we really need to address quite quickly in our modern day organization. Now, as Sonia had mentioned earlier as well, as we all have probably experienced, annual budgets become obsolete very, very quickly. So budget information becomes very stale, pretty much as soon as the planning process has been completed. So as we think about this, we think about how many times have you and your team gone through a long and painful budget process. You finally have it signed off, and then you realize that you're already 2 to 3 months into your new fiscal year, and nobody's looking at your budget anymore, probably because it has old data. And most of the time, this old budget data inhibits FP&A and other stakeholders around the business to make timely strategic decisions. Nobody wants to use that data anymore. It's not real time anymore. So as change happens continuously throughout the year, especially when performing any type of scenario analysis, we need the ability to adapt to these things. And when we're tossing files back and forth via email, when we don't have a single source of truth as well, these challenges can be magnified considerably. And we're going to talk about that on the next slide here. So we talked a little bit about traditional FP&A versus modern FP&A. And if we're looking at this, and many of us believe that we're that bottom line, right? And if you're looking at that and you're thinking, well, I must be doing it all wrong, obviously you're not alone in this struggle, right? We think, again, like everybody faces these types of issues and these struggles, right? When we look at volatility and data volumes and the like, you're adjusting your plans continuously for increased uncertainty. You're incorporating more data analysis than ever before, and between that and the need for constantly updated forecasts, it's really tough for us to keep up. And unfortunately for those of us in FP&A, unless we quickly arm ourselves with an agile, flexible approach, this gap that we're seeing is only going to widen. And it's something that organizations are starting to realize as well, right? 88% of executives, they're looking for this agility in their organization. They're identifying this very quickly without being told. But many of these executives don't know how to get there. They don't even know how to start. Part of that is because 73% of them are stuck in silos. They're in Excel hell. They're on version 15B_final, and half of their team doesn't even know that version exists because the team member who has that version wasn't at the last meeting. Well, along with this paradigm shift to modern continuous company-wide planning also comes with a shift in the technology required to enable that planning. We talked a lot about mindset, but part of that mindset is also understanding that there are limitations on the technology that we are using when we have a legacy approach. In fact, an HBR study yielded that many planners agree, 91% of them, that their organizations would benefit from modern planning tools, specifically in making their organizations more flexible and adaptable. So what does that mean for us then, as FP&A folks? What that means is what's needed is really a unified and automated approach, a unified and automated solution that supports continuous and agile planning. a solution that allows FP&A and other key stakeholders to make updates with ease throughout the year, and one that doesn't inhibit, but rather empowers finance and FP&A to own the modeling they need for continuous planning. So the key outcome that we're looking for is to allow decision makers to quickly pivot by selecting the best course of action during any time of the year. And like Maria had mentioned before me, this means that whatever happens, an agile FP&A organization can then respond instead of just react. And they can do so by doing something like spinning off a new what if scenario with the single click of a button, or by using something like AI and machine learning to utilize predictive forecasting and anticipate possible scenarios. Those are the types of things that a modern FP&A organization are trending toward. And I think these are just a few more examples for things that we can aspire to as FP&A organizations. These are things that customers of Workday have experienced as far as transforming the way that they do planning. So just to run through a couple of these examples, Granite Construction, they have over 130 planners who are consistently involved in their planning process. And before, the data was everywhere. So that when they were looking at their forecasts and when they were looking at their budgeting process, they couldn't determine the cause of problems. Whereas now they can drill down and pinpoint to where something went wrong. So their central FP&A team can sync up with project owners across the organization for a more accurate forecast. And those project owners now have greater accountability over their forecast. So they moved from a single forecast a year to 12 monthly forecasts. So what that did is really give the decision makers in those organizations a better view of their business. Then looking at TELUS Communications, a large telecommunications company, they started off with very inefficient project planning. So their multi-billion-dollar infrastructure project required a sophisticated but easy to use tool to identify resources needed to meet their project targets. And to get a consolidated view of the project initially took them 10 days. So they had the surface data for the use of 35 to 40 different project managers. And this was unrealistic using spreadsheets. They transformed the way they plan, and they now have extremely effective and efficient project planning. So they reduced their forecasting time from 10 days to 1 day. And what this resulted in was a 30% reduction in the FTE that was dedicated to these processes. And now they can spread out and they can focus on more strategic tasks like actual data analysis, being strategic advisors to the business. And not only that, but they also were able to decrease their forecast variance to less than a single percent. And then finally, just looking at AGF, an investment management firm, they used a multitude of spreadsheets to complete their enterprise planning and reporting. But now in their journey, they've transformed that planning process and they've stopped the shuffling of files around. So finance, FP&A in particular, they now focus on helping operational leaders gain visual insights through dashboards into financial performance. And they can do this in real time using real-time data. And like I mentioned before, with the proliferation and increase of useful but massive sets of data, the operational data that they desire to use was far too complex to bring into an outdated financial forecasting process. Instead, not only were they able to incorporate these large operational data sets, they were able to cut out several days out of their forecasting and reporting processes each month. And they managed to even cut out a full week of their annual budgeting practice. So all of this resulted in rolling 8-quarter forecasting and reporting processes that now drive a much more strategic and long-term business outcome. So really, at Workday, we believe that all organizations, including yours, can not only aspire to achieve what these customers have done, which is what we call continuous and company-wide planning, but we believe that with the right technology and, most importantly, a paradigm shift to the right mindset and processes, your organization can and will. So interconnected processes and agile planning, these are the crux of how we believe planning as a function has to evolve. And with that role, and with that evolution, FP&A will become more agile and increasingly strategic as well.
Thank you very much there, Kevin. Fantastic presentation. Great stats you shared, 88% looking for agility, but most of us are stuck in silos, and 91% want to invest in tools and they want new tools. So, great way to go. Very quickly, can I ask the other panelists to come and join us? Time is very quickly running out, so we'll run through very, very quickly on this. The discussion point here was, what is the biggest hurdle you face in your continuous planning journey? So can I ask Sonia for a very quick answer here, Sonia?
Yeah, I would say changing the mindset, but not only within the FP&A team too, bringing the team along. Sometimes you have one or two people who have the skill set, right? The broad skill set to be able to have that curiosity and go beyond. Having the whole team move in that direction can be challenging.
Fantastic, thank you. Maria, your answer to this?
Yeah, I would build on what Sonia just said. So it's first, to me, it's first people, second technology. So people will be exactly bringing along your FP&A team, educating the rest of the organization and picking people from the rest of organization who can be on a small working group who creates this real-time planning together with you. This will be the second subtopic in the first one. And technology, again, it depends on the size of your organization. If you are big, it can be, like a big, highly technological solution. It can be also something small, but if you have time and opportunity, spend time and invest a little bit into that, it will definitely pay you back.
Thank you. Final word from you, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to echo what both of you have already said, I think people and technology, right? Addressing the value and needs of really the people who are in your organization, who are closest to the business, and on the technology part, being able to handle the data, being able to perform what if scenario analysis and to do it quickly. And I think that this means that FP&A really has a very unique opportunity to act in that transformative way and to be a catalyst for change.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, please keep sending your questions. We've got time for a few, but all of the questions will be answered to you via email, those which we don't have time to answer. So we've got time for a few questions, so let's go straight into it. And the first one to Sonia. Sonia, continuous planning. Is there a timeline for continuous planning? How do you work it out?
Yes and no. I think we have people in the team that focus more on the analytics and continuous planning, and others are more on the kind of like the traditional FP&A kind of timeline of monthly reporting and whatnot. So deadline, not so much. We do a lot of analytics around the budget or before the budget so that we're prepared. We revise some scenarios ahead of the budget to incorporate that, but not so much of a timeline.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is continuous planning. If there is a need and there is an event, as you said, hurricane happening, there you go. There you do it. You may do it for 6 months forward. You may do it for 12 months forward, or you may just do it for the next couple of months to see what happens. So thank you for that. Maria, a quick one for you. What are the skills FP&A professional need in order to jump into continuous planning activities? Any specific skill?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So first of all, I would say it's about curiosity and knowing the business behind the numbers. So this will be the first and foremost. Second will be business partnering skill, because not everything you know yourself. Yeah, you need to be well connected in the organization to know whom to ask, how to interpret the answer, how to convert this into the numbers. And I would say the general analytical skill, but this is where finance and FP&A are typically strong at, to be able to understand what really matters, what matters less, how to combine it all together. Will be the three from my side.
Oh, fantastic. Great answers there, and we never stop learning, as we say, and skill set keep changing and evolving. And quite a few mentioned by Kevin there. And then we move on to Kevin very nicely. Kevin, this is quite a nice question. Do you find continuous planning takes more time? Should continuous planning take more time?
I think that's an excellent question. I think especially because I think that the term continuous planning might evoke some emotion there, as far as the idea of maybe we're planning all the time, nonstop planning, and I don't think that's what it means at all. I think that at the end of the day, continuous planning will take you less time. Like I mentioned before, less fire drills and a greater ability to anticipate different scenarios. So perhaps it will take a little bit of effort to do this paradigm shift that we're talking about, to implement some of that technology that we're talking about as well. But once you get there, really your organization will reap the benefits of being able to, like I mentioned before, create a new what if scenario with a single click of a button, right? Use predictive forecasting and utilize modern technologies like AI and machine learning in order to anticipate what might be on the horizon. I think that those things are really what's going to help the modern organization differentiate itself and to not only survive, but to thrive in this environment.
Absolutely spot on there. Thank you very much. And you took us through that. So no, the idea is not to be spending a lot more time. It's to be more agile and react very, very quickly. So thank you very much for those answers, panelists. We've only got time for these 3 questions, but we will answer all of your questions. So we've still got a couple of minutes to close off. So what is on the card for you guys? We've got 2 webinars, one on November 22nd about FP&A scenario planning, scenario management. We've just talked about this subject. And also on December the 6th, Inside the Crystal Ball, Top Trends Shaping FP&A 2024 and Beyond. So please put that in your diary. And remember, we've also got our maturity model assessment tool on our website where you could go and plan or map out where your organization is. So please do give it a try. Well, it's a good time now for me to say thank you, and a big thank you to Workday, our sponsor today, for making this happen. Another big thank you to all our panelists, Sonia, Kevin, and Maria, for all their hard work and spending their time and very insightful presentation. So thank you, panelists, for making the time. And finally, a big, massive thank you to you, the audience, our FP&A members attending from 44 different countries all over the world. So thank you very much for attendance. I hope it's been really good for you. This is how you can keep in touch with us. Until the next time, I will say goodbye. Please remember, we've got a feedback pop-up coming just after I close. So please stay and give us some feedback. Otherwise, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.